All right. We're back in the middle of Data Sources 1, the Sources section, section 3.3, and I'd like to talk about the role of nonprofit organizations in this data landscape. Right, so nonprofits are formed for specific reasons. I say nonprofits in general, but it can be any kind of organization that is formed to carry out specific, often these are carrying out specific studies or serving as repositories for specific kinds of data. And they can be varied all over the place in terms of the types of topics that they deal with, and I'm going to just highlight major ones here. And I'll open up my tabs first. And we'll start to talk through them. So ICPSR. ICPSR is the Inter-University Consortium for Political and Social Research, although it's one of those acronyms where they just usually go by ICPSR now. And this is the largest social science archive in the world. Usually when I present on this, I say, like, if there's one thing you want to remember or keep in mind if you haven't heard about it before, is this ICPSR. ICPSR has a number of services. Rutgers and most other universities are members. Any university that has any sort of research credentials, I would say, should be a member of ICPSR. There are a number of international members as well. The data here is more US data than not, but there's plenty of international data here as well. They have a summer program for education on data topics. They have many teaching and learning materials that instructors can use to create lessons out of ICPSR data. They have guides for data management. Rutgers is a member of ICPSR, so you can actually deposit your research data here and share it because we are members. But that's all background. Let me just jump into the finding data section, right? So here again, you can search across many different things. There are currently 21,000 studies. You can see the most downloaded, the number one is Ad Health, the study of adolescent to adult health that we mentioned earlier. And interestingly, the India Human Development Survey. Let me not click on that because I said that this session is focused on the US. Let's look at let's look at uniform crime reporting, since we referred to that in the previous piece. ICPSR has all kinds of stuff. I'll run another search in a second to kind of illustrate that, but they collect official government sources as well and put the information in a researcher-friendly format. Right? So this is a collection that collects 20 plus years of data in one place. It's described. It has a list of the variables that are available, right? You can also search across data sets for variables of interest. That's probably not a good idea to search for something super general like race and get the 15,000 studies that will have that in it. But if you're looking for studies that deal with a very specific topic, that searching by variable is quite useful. There are some tools here that let you browse the data online. again, I won't go there because this is not a super detailed how-to, but there's just a lot you can do with this. When you go to the documentation tab, you can read the documentation of each section. This has actually got, well, a lot. Sometimes the documentation is grouped in like one big code book, but this is a lot of individual topic-related files. And when you go to download, you can get the data itself. And again, these are complete data sets, usually researcher focused, so like arranged as like one big table where the observations and variables are easily accessible for, you know, stats programs. And I do want to mention, to download you have to be a member, right? So unless selected data is freely available, depending on how it's been uploaded, but most of the data you do have to be an ICPSR member to download. At Rutgers, that means creating an account on campus first, or authenticating through either the library or the VPN to create your account. After you've done that, you'll be able to log in and download data. Not sure I have a password saved on this particular machine, and it's a bit sluggish anyway, so I won't illustrate that part. No, I won't spend time signing in here, but create an account as a Rutgers user, either by being on campus or being authenticated, and then you'll be able to get the data itself. What I want to show you is the kind of richness of the ICPSR collection. I was searching for death before. Let me keep on this morbid topic. If I search for death, nearly 5,000 studies appear. Again, official data series, deaths in custody from the Bureau of Justice Statistics, Health and Human Services over time, National Health Interview Survey. But you can also see this one has a lot of these Health and Human Services ones. But you can see there's, okay, here's some international, cross-national statistics on the causes of death from the UN. Various time periods, specific polls and things, the Black Death, right? And let me pick on this one that was Ohio causes of death. So we can also find these studies by individual researchers who are, you know, so it ranges from, my point is, it ranges from the very big official government sources down to individual researcher studies about, can be very specific topics. This is Ohio born from 1866 to 1963, studying the causes of death in Ohio. But everything in it is really well described, has this documentation, has the ability to download the data, and it's just a super rich source that I would almost always check for any kind of data need to get started. You can also see the filters on the left that let us refine any kind of search. And the last thing I'll say about ICPSR are these thematic collections, where they have very rich collections by topic, where they have taken the relevant resources for, you know, very specific areas, health equity, child and family data, and these are just great, right? It's basically a window into ICPSR where the sources are those ICPSR studies, but it's got extra help and description about the topic, and resources for you there, for each of these archives, and there are many topical archives. We'll return to that in section 5 as well, for the Resource Center for Minority Data. Okay, ICPSR, again, could be the topic of a workshop in itself. They also have their own training and things online that you can get their YouTube videos. So I don't feel like you need me to talk about that. Continuing the overview, Roper is another very large data source. Let me stop searching about death, and I'll search immigration here, because the focus of Roper is on polling and public opinion, political opinion, social opinion, and you can search it in a couple of different ways. You can search it by questions that appear in the results, and I really should log into this one from the library so we see the full version. So I'm going to the library's page, I'm going to databases, and I'm going to Roper so that I can authenticate with my Rutgers NetID. If you are watching this outside of Rutgers, perhaps your institution also has access to Roper. This is pretty much a subscription source. But yeah, so now I'm in and I'm authenticated, and I'll retype my search. So Roper's mission, right? ICPSR is a mostly grant-funded organization whose mission is to archive data. But Roper is more focused on, they also archive all of this public opinion data, but they're issue focused, right, in the sense that it all centers around polling and public opinion. So here's a current poll from Reuters, early April, with percentages on Trump's rating for immigration issues. And you're going to find a number of sources. One thing you might not find as much of, there are some Gallup polls in here. Gallup, famous as one of the first biggest original polling organizations, Gallup has kind of spun off their own product, an expensive, very expensive polling source that focuses in a lot of ways more on business than politics in the direction they've headed. Rutgers does not have a Gallup subscription, and because Gallup has their separate product, you will not find many Gallup polls here in Roper. It's something that people often ask for. Okay, so what I want to do is focus in on this check mark on the left, the filters for downloadable data sets. And we can see all those individual questions, but I think an important research aspect of Roper is that we can get full data sets here as well. So the sources that have downloadable data sets are listed if you check off that button, and you can see, okay, this is around a year ago, after last year's State of the Union issues where they compared Trump and Biden, but there's a downloads tab that lets you get the actual data files, right? So you can see for each respondent how their opinions on different issues were related and do analysis on them. Of course, there's documentation about each of these data sets and what variables and questions are inside, and you can browse and discover those kind of things. But yeah, if public opinion polls are important to you, Roper is your place to start. Not the only one, but again, this is just the overview. Another project is the IPPMS project, and I have learned that this is pronounced IPPMS. PUMS is the public use microdata sample of the census, and IPUMS is an international expansion of that, and their focus is, as they say, integrating across time and space, right? So you can see there are 9 components here, of which I'm going to jump into the USA in a second, but before I do that, I'm going to mention that this NHGIS is a very important tool for population data that is integrated with geolocation, geographic information system formatted data. So it's a good one, NHGIS. But let me just focus on IPUMS USA. Again, there's an international component, so you'll see this again in the International Data Sources 2 segment when that comes out. But it's easier to understand, I think, if we focus on IPUMS USA. This segment of the project, which is one of the original segments of the original things they did, is designed to link together all of the census data. And one issue with census research is that every 10 years the variables change a bit. The way they classify things change a bit. We'll see an example of that in section 5. And rather than each individual researcher trying to align those things, IPUMS has done that for you. They have done a best I don't want to call it guess, but a best effort at linking similar things together. And so it's also very researcher focused, where you can go in and you can select which years, which data sources you would like to pull from, which variables you would like. Let me just do something very basic here, like person, and we can see there's sex, age, and the little X's here tell you, which years this information is available for. Some of these going back to 1850. If we look at something like the number of times married, right, we can see that this was asked recently, then they stopped asking it, then they asked it again, and in 1910 was the first time that they asked it. And we can drill even deeper and see exactly how this appeared in questionnaires over time. How did they ask this in 1910? The census taker was supposed to write S for single, WD for widowed, and D for divorced. If it's a second marriage, write M2, right? So we can understand how the coding and things changed over time. So it's very powerful. It has all those details. Once you select what you like, it has a shopping cart metaphor. You go to the shopping cart and you create a data extract. At that point, it's going to ask you to log in. This is freely available. You don't have to use a Rutgers subscription. You just have to create an account with them. And then you can download these data sets. So again, a researcher focus, census data over time, and this is what the project is about. It's another grant-funded project. I should have mentioned before, ICPSR's physical home is at the University of Michigan, and IPUM's physical home is at the University of Minnesota. So these are jewels of the Big Ten. This is also a trustworthy data repository. So I was focusing on the usability of this IPUMS, but it's also the most complete single source for this census data. They have the census microdata, the data that is at the person level. They also have scans of previous censuses. So if you want to actually browse what did the tables look like, they have that. They have full count data, all of it that has been released, not in a genealogy person's style where you look up names, but focusing on the demographic data. And these special collections you can see of enslaved persons, mortality. There's just a ton of interesting things that are going on, and it's really one of the most powerful sources for comparative demographic data. And each of those topical collections at the homepage of IPUMS has its own riches to use as well. Let's see. So that's IPUMS. Let me do the others more quickly. I won't click into them. General Social Survey is available freely online, and it is the longest running single survey of social opinion. And so they every 2 years have been asking since 1972 various opinion questions, right? So you want to compare over a long time period what has been happening in American society. You can visit them and download. There's a similar project for elections, American National Election Studies. That's a long-running study where they ask people's opinions after they have voted and try to understand why people are voting for what they do. And they have, of course, this very rich archive of data back to 1948, including some restricted use data. So another, if you're into politics, this is a major source that you should know about. There are many other important sources. I don't mean to slight anybody. Those are just some of the super highlights. I'll close this section with this website, the Registry of Research Data Repositories, that will allow you to, let me just see if there's anything that comes up here for death, this is a searchable database of repositories. So there are hundreds of different repositories that collect data of different types from around the world. Re3 Data attempts to identify those, and so you can search or browse here. You can see I've got deaths reported to coroners in Australia and New Zealand and the cause of death, human mortality, Canadian longitudinal study on aging, Africa, cardiovascular research. These are repositories where you may either deposit or take data out. You can filter them to understand if they are open or restricted or have, different things, depending on the purpose of your search, right? You may simply be looking for something where you can quickly identify open public data, and you can use the filters for that. Or you may be looking for a place to deposit your data. So you might focus on whether they let you put things in rather than download, which is the data upload category. It's quite a large set. I think if I do an empty search, yes, I can see that there are over 3,300 repositories identified here. So as I said, we've just scratched the surface, but this may let you explore some additional data sources that are out there. So the intention, some of those may be governmental sources as well, but a lot of them are nonprofits. but I'm ending the nonprofit section with that, and we'll return in the next part with commercial subscription paid databases.